Good afternoon. In my last lecture, I mentioned the ADDIE model. What is that ADDIE model? But today I will explain the detail of ADDIE model. So, instructional design for active learning, I mainly cover ADDIE model and learning theory. Now, in the ADDIE model, the analyze A for analyze, but what actually we analyze? Okay. So, what is the problem or need? That is we have to find out. What is the problem or need that we have to analyze? Where will the learning occur? How is the target audience? What are the learning tasks? And so, these are things we have to analyze. So, there is what is the need, that we have to find the need and we have to analyze the need, then only we can give the instructional design. So, what is the problem or need, or can this be solved without instruction? So, what is the need? Need is nothing but what we desire and what is happening. The difference between the desire and happening is called the need. So, there is, for this need we have to analyze. So, be sure that the instruction is the solution to your problem or need. So, what is the need? We have to solve we have to see that what the instruction we will give and whether it is solve the problem or not. So, we have to identify is the keyword in the instructional design, and what you have to do? We have to identify a goal or the objectives. In that case, identify will your goal be acceptable to those that asked you to develop the instruction. Will that goal is acceptable? So, that we have to identify. Are the goals are clear and measurable? That we have to identify. Will there be any expertise available to help you solve the instructional goal? That we have to identify. Are the time and resources available? And will some learners be available during the development process, so that you can refine your instruction along the way. So, all these things, before going to the goal, we have to identify those things. So, identify the goal and the objectives. Are the goals acceptable? Are the goals measurable? Is the expertise available, or the time and resources, or the learners available? So, these things we have to identify. So, identify in the analysis things, that identify is very important. In that analysis, there are 4 subphases. One is the instructional goal, instructional analysis, learner analysis, and the learner objectives. So, that the first, what is the instructional goal? Here, goals are a very broad, a generalized statement about what is to be learned. So, that is the goal. To attain that goal, objectives is nothing but the tools, right? Objectives are the tools you can make sure that you want to go to that goal. So, that is the objective. So, the arrows here you should, towards your target, that is the objective. So, what the analyze? The instructional goal we have to analyze. So, upon successful completion of the instruction, the learner will complete something, identify the problem, write. These are the action verbs. So, in this way we have to write the goal. Here in this picture, suppose different agency, their goals, their objectives are very different. Suppose in the global, suppose schools and state. Here the objectives is very complex. In the schools or in the state, the objectives are it's a complex. So, in that case you require lots of time and instruction, and it is accomplished via new curriculum. But when it comes to from the global or the state to the educational or the department wise, in that case the objective is a moderate complex, right. So, you have to take suppose 1 week or that or a month to complete the objective, right, and it is accomplished via small units. So, there is a difference between the state and the school objectives to the educational or the department wise objectives, and in the case of the performance, the unit objectives, the goals are very narrow. A small unit, the goal should be very narrow. So, 2 hours or 3 hours I need in day to complete the goal. And not only that, it is accomplished by via the lesson plan. Before starting the class, I will just think, okay, today if I teach this unit, in that case our objective will be very narrow, our goal will be narrow, but in the lesson plan I will, in these things we will cover, and after 1 unit the student will learn this. So, if the objective is very clear to me, it is easy for the student also learn on their own, or what I need that they can understand. So, educational objectives, in that case in the 1956 Bloom's taxonomy was discovered. So, there the cognition things, emotional skills and the psychomotor activities were there. So, in the cognition it mainly is to the knowledge, emotional mainly to the self, and the psychomotor activities is the skills. I will explain this in my in another lecture. Okay. So, in the 2001 Anderson Krathwohl revision, so mainly we are talking about the educational objectives in the first thing. So, the first instructional goals, if it is clear. So, and up to that the taxonomy and the instructional educational objectives. So, let us come to the instructional analysis, the second point. According to Dick and Caddy, an instructional analysis is a set of procedures when applied to an instructional goal. When the instructional goal is there, so how we will analyze this, right? Results in the identification of the relevant steps. What steps we will for performing the goal? To perform the goal, what is the steps we will take, and the subordinate skills it required for a student to achieve that goal. So, that thing is the instructional analysis. So, the analysis phase can be considered as the goal setting stage. The goal is clear. So, we will in that case 2 fundamental steps involved in the conducting the goal analysis. The one is the clarifying outcome. What is that? Classify, first clarify and then classify the outcomes. That means the type of learning outcome involved in achieving the goal. This is the first. Okay. So, the classifying the outcome, and the second is the objective is taking your goal statement and analyzing in order to identify the relevant steps involved for someone to perform that goal. That means, the second one is the determining the goal steps. So, in that case in the picture you can see that the first one in the construct instructional analysis. The step 1 is the goal analysis, and this step 1, the sub step 1 is the classify outcome, what I mentioned, and the sub steps 2 is the determine the goal steps. And here if the goal analysis is over, we will go to the step 2, that is the subordinate skill analysis. Okay. So, let us come to the instructional goals is clear, instructional analysis is clear. Now, the learner analysis and the learner objectives. So, in that analysis phases, I already explained the instructional goals and the instructional analysis. Now, we will come to the learner analysis. So, what is that learner analysis? First, learner analysis, first it comes in a, will the instruction is be appropriate for more than one audience, or the target audience, what is the similarities and the differences between the target and audience, that we have to analyze, right. And the characteristics also, if it is stable or they are unstable, or the changes over time, or the stable means rarely change over time. So, different types of learners, so we should analyze it, and then only we can give the instruction. And the learner approaches are different, learner styles are different. So, what are the learners main, what is the entry skills? Before coming to the instruction, what the entry skills, that we have to analyze. And then if they have any prior knowledge or not, if they have prior knowledge, that is another point. What is their attitude? How are they? Or motivation, whether the learners have the motivation or not. If they do not have any motivation, with the instruction also you can't. So, that we have to analyze before starting your instructional design. Abilities, what are their abilities? That we have to understand. Learning preferences, are they visual learners, are they verbal learners, what is their learning preferences? Group characteristics, what type of the learners, what type of the group analysis, how they want to do. So, these things is very important when you start, the learning analysis is learner analysis is very important. So, learner characteristics are the important aspects in the instructional design. The four major categories of the learners characteristics, the cognitive, that can be the general, there can be the specific, then the psychological, affective, social, or the cognitive characteristics have three dimensions. Okay, what is this? These some dimensions, the difference are there. What's that? What is the similarities? What's the differences? Are they changing or the stable? The four dimensions in the cognitive characteristics, each is different qualities and the implications for the instructional designers. So, the learner analysis is an important part in the analysis section. After analyzing the learner, the fourth point is the learner's learning objective. A learning objective is a statement of what the student wants to able to do, and what their skill set, and what they have to complete after their instruction, what the learner can able to do. So, in that case, the learning objectives, it has three major components. What's that? A description of what the learner will do, that is the performance component, right. Under what condition? The condition under which the student can perform their task. So, that is the condition component. Up to what level? That is the criterion component. So, these three parts are very important. So, it is clear that the analysis level has the four subphases: instructional goals, instructional analysis, learner analysis, and learner objectives. Now, the analyze phase is the foundation of all other phases in the instructional design. So, first was you have to define the problem, identify the source of the problem, and determine the possible solutions. So, in that case, the phase may include specific research techniques, suppose needs analysis, right. What is the job analysis, task analysis, those things you have to, this is the important phase, and the outputs of this phase, it often include the instructional goals and a list of tasks to be instructed. So, these outputs will be the inputs in the design phase, because in the instructional, after the analyze, what is the output is there, that is the in the design phase, ADD, that is the design phase. The output is the inputs of the design phase. So, suppose the teacher want to understand the learner, and thorough needs analysis, the following information is very important. Your learner's background, what's their age, their education, their profession, their position, and their preferred learning styles, and then their level of knowledge on that topic, their expectation from the training. So, that is what is their expectation from the training, what relevant knowledge and skills do they need to learn, and what do they already know, how well can they learn, what study skills, or how varied are they in their knowledge and the learning styles, because in the different learners are there. What motivation and interest, attitudes to the teaching learning methods, what are the obstacles to their learning, such as anxiety, or they have any color blindness or not, or the lack of concentration, or the computer access, whether they have any problem, or these things first we have to analyze, then only we can go to the design component, design part, right. The design is how to teach, right. So, the stage determines all the goals, tools to be used to gauge the performance, the various stage, subject matter analysis, planning, resources. So, the design thing. So, in that case, in that the focus is on the learning objectives, the content, the subject matter analysis, exercise, lesson planning, assessment. This is very important in the design stage. So, the design strategy is focused on the course level, and it provides an approach to organizing and presenting the content based on the level of the objective. Is the objective clear? How to present, that the design thing, and the strategy is necessary to maximize the transfer of learning from the instructional setting to the job. So, design strategy, it considers the following components. What are those? The learning taxonomy. What taxonomy here? Suppose the Bloom taxonomy, or what is the structure? Learning sequence, that if you under that in the, what learning sequence, that is important, right, to design. So, what is the progression, learner pacing, learner participation, interactivity, content presentation, how we will present the content, was the learner feedback, that is very important, and the supplemental information. So, all these things are important in the design thing. Now, the third part is the design, the development phase is addresses the tools to create the instructional material. In this process, develop the producing the material needed to meet the goals and the objectives. So, that is how to develop it. In that case, the phase is detailed plan on the list, step by step. In this time, this deadline, we have to develop this content. So, the develop phase is the important part in order to help the students to learn the task. A list of activity should be produced. So, the delivery method should be chosen, whether in the video or the PowerPoint or lecture notes or simply blackboard, how we will develop. That is important, and it is important to review the previous material, so that the information is not repeated. And lastly, develop the instructional coursework. So, develop is the third important phase in the ADDIE model. The fourth is now implement it. Implement. During the phase, the first use of the instructional material are described to the learner, And then the instruction must be ready to face unforeseen problem, the learner difficulties or the instructional challenges, and the tools necessary to fix any problem should be at hand. So, implementation means the timeline must be established, the final product must be delivered. So, once the final product is ready, the learning environment must be prepared. So, the learners must be prepared, which includes advising students or requirements, all the tools to be used must be ready. So, after the development, after analyzing it, we have to design that, after design we have to develop it, and after develop that we have to implement it. And after implementation, the last one is the evaluation, right. The evaluation process is the systematic process that determines the effectiveness of the instructional design. So, the evaluation is the ongoing process that happens at each phase. Is the in ADDIE model, each phase we are evaluating, but evaluation in the last one. Here the two steps, one is the formative evaluation, another is the summative evaluation. Now, what is that formative evaluation? Each phase, each class we are evaluating, we are asking them questions. These are a small class test. So, that is the formative, but after doing the whole course we will give them to the total 1 hour, that is the summative evaluation. So, it is the process of gathering data following implementation in order to determine the effectiveness of the goal. What the goal is there, with it effective or not, whether. So, in the last the total the summative evaluation will do. So, review and evaluate each phase to make sure it accomplishing the goal. So, perform external evaluations that will ensure that information will be used properly, revise the training system in order to make it better. So, this is the evaluation part. Now, let us come to the learning theory. What is that? Instructional theories always play an important role into design the instructional materials. So, theories was the behaviorism, constructivism, the social learning, cognitivism helped to shape and define the outcome of the instructional materials. Now, in here learning theories are organized as a set of principles explaining how individuals acquire, retain and recall knowledge. So, the principles of the theories can be used as guidelines to help select instructional tools, techniques, strategies that promote learning. But here I will just explain what is the behaviorism. One is the behaviorism. What is that? New behaviors or changes in behaviors are acquired through association between the stimuli and response. It is developed, the work is B.K. Skinner. But behaviorism is that the behaviorism theories, they believe that the knowledge exists independently outside the people. So, they view that the learner as a blank slate who must be provided from the experiences he will gain. So, in that case, behaviorists believe that learning actually occurs when new behaviors or changes in behaviors are occurred through associations between the stimuli and response. Thus, association leads to the changes in the behavior. What is that? So, that they are just like a blank slate. So, in that case, what is the experiences they are learning? So, the learning process is based on objectively observable change in behavior. So, in that case, the theory is the learning begins when a cue or the stimulus from the environment is presented and the learner reacts and stimulus for some time or the response. So, the change in the behavior of the learner signifies that the learning has occurred. So, the teachers use the behaviorism when they if they reward them or they punish them, from that reward and punishment they are learning. So, this is the behaviorist thought. So, suppose the example is drill or rote work or repeated practice, from there you are learning, or the bonus points, if you do this you will get this much bonus point. So, you are learning from that, or the if you say good jobs, it's a very good job, the children, okay, teacher tell me good, so they are doing this. So, in that case these things is important. So, behavior instruction, it does not prepare the learner for problem solving or creative thinking. So, learner do what they are told and do not take the initiative to change or improve things. After the behaviorism, the cognitivism. What's that? This is nothing but the process is based on the thought behind the behavior. What's that? The theory is based on the idea that the human process the information what they receive rather than merely was the stimuli. That is, they think about what is happening cognitively, they are thinking it. So, in that case the learner's mind is just like a mirror from which new knowledge and skills will be reflected. So, this is the cognitivism. So, cognition information processing is used when the learner plays an active role in seeking ways to understand and process information that he or she receives and relate it to already known and stored within the memory. So, cognitive theory is created by Jean Piaget, and the cognitive learning theories believe learning occurs through internal processing of information. So, the cognitive approach is the learning theory pays more attention that what goes inside the learner's head, that is important, and focuses where on the mental processes, rather than the observable behavior. So, cognitivism is the learning involves the reorganization of the experiences, either by attaining new insights or changing the old ones. Thus, learning is nothing but the change in the knowledge which is stored in the memory and not just in the change in the behavior. So, that is the difference between the behaviorism and the cognitivism. Some example, classifying or chunking information. You need cognitive thing, you are thinking it and then you can classify it. So, not from the behavior you are learning. So, the linking concepts, if you can link it, or providing some structure, or real world example, you are thinking, then only you can give some real world example. So, that is the cognitivism. And problem solving, that is very important in the cognitivism. Now, the last one is the constructivism. What's that? It is based on the premise that we all construct our own perspective in the world based on the individual experiences and the internal knowledge. So, learning is based on how individual interprets or creates meaning of his and her experiences. So, knowledge which is constructed by the learner, and since everyone has the different experiences and perceptions, so learning is a unique and different for each person. So, in the constructivism, the constructivist theories believe that learning is a process where individuals construct new ideas. If they construct new ideas or the new concepts, based on their prior knowledge and their experiences. So, we resolve the conflict, in the constructivism we resolve the conflict between the ideas and reflect on the theoretical explanations, and the theory is based, the theory is used to focus on preparing people in problem solve. So, the constructivism, the example case studies, different case studies and the views, or the research projects. You have to, in the research projects, you have to think, oh, after the research your conclusion. So, that is the problem based learning. Suppose the active learning, the collaborative learning, brainstorming, discovery learning, these are the examples of the constructivism. So, these are the three learning theories: behaviorism, cognitivism and the constructivism. Thank you.